Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with episode number 72 of the Yakking Show, where we talk about life, business, and more, and we bring you tips and ideas for the changing world we're living in. And every day, this year, it's changing again. As always, we have interesting guests in our lineup, and today is no exception. I'll be handing over to Kathleen in a moment to introduce our guest, but before I do, a quick favor, if you like our show, please subscribe to it so you don't miss the next episode with another interesting guest, which will be coming up in a few days' time. Enough from me. Kathleen, how are you doing in Waterloo today?
Hello, Peter. Doing well, thank you so much. A little bit gloomy here today, but nonetheless, I'm in a great mood today because we have a wonderful guest. And first of all, thank you all so very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate you, and we love reading your comments, so do please keep them coming. And if anyone out there is interested in becoming a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Peter or myself. And as Peter mentioned, we have a very interesting lady with us today. Her name is Amy Bovaird. Amy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm doing great today.
So for our audience, Amy is an inspirational speaker. She's an author, a blogger, and a coach. She was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa at the age of 28, which resulted in blindness. Amy, you call yourself the low vision motivator with high expectations. For our audience, would you please tell our audience a little more about your background and how you help people that are going through blindness?
Yeah. So first of all, just to explain, blindness is a continuum from legally blind to completely blind. So there's a whole realm of different sight in that gap there. So when we say blindness, it just encompasses a lot. Mm-hmm. So I call myself the low vision motivator with high expectations because sometimes society doesn't understand that big, long continuum, and they think that it's like a light switch on and off. And so you're either blind or sighted. And I did too. I thought that before I started to lose more and more vision. But the thing is that we have to change people's and ourselves impressions of blindness and we have to challenge ourselves to do more and to show people that we are capable of much higher, doing many more things than they think that we are capable and that we think we are capable of doing. So when I speak to people, I just want them to empower themselves. And so that's why I say I'm the low vision motivator, because I have some vision. I'm partially sighted. I'm legally blind, but I want us to try and do everything that we can and not limit ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I challenge people to get out of their comfort zone and do and just live their life and be happy, be comfortable, and see how rich it can be, how full. So that's it.
So tell our listeners a little bit more about your background and before the onset of blindness. Yeah. What did you do?
Yeah, so I was I was a teacher. I taught overseas. I was, of my family, I'm the quietest one. But I love culture. I love trying new foods. I love meeting new people and learning about different lifestyles and language. So I was kind of drawn, even as a child, to other cultures. I had a Japanese aunt and I had a Russian aunt. And so this was kind of fed that interest. And when I was in my third year of college, for some reason, even though I was so quiet, I went away to school, which of course is my interest in traveling. And I fell in love with this major of linguistics, and it encompassed dialect and language and teaching. And it was in 1982, so it was a rather new, linguistics wasn't new, but teaching English as a foreign language was new.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, this is my ticket. I can go. I can teach overseas. And so I felt like kind of like a stray button in my family. And so I went overseas, and my family sewed me back on, like to a garment, if you want to look at it that way. And then I would come back, and then I would go back overseas to another country, and come back and go back to another country. So my family was the stability, and I was the one going out and having the high adventure. So, yeah. The third year, between the second, I left Central America, and I got a wonderful job in Indonesia. But between those two jobs, when one job finished and the other one began, I traveled in Ecuador, and I noticed that in the jungle, I had a lot of trouble seeing. I was like, people were like, what's wrong with her? What's up with her? And I went back thinking I'm going to get stronger glasses and then go to my new job in Indonesia. Mm-hmm. But it didn't really work out that way. That's when I found out I had this incurable disease, eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa. And I wasn't really expecting it. My mind was on, in packing for Indonesia. I'm going to this far away, exotic, where I don't even know where it is exactly. And I was just kind of stopped in my footsteps. I was like, what do I do? Oh my gosh. And my mother wanted me just to stay home, just to let that job go. And I was just like frozen. I didn't know what to do, because the doctor had told me, he was such a kind man. He told me, you're going to go blind. We don't know when, we don't know how, but you're going to go blind. That's what we're certain. And so it was such a far cry from when I was thinking I just needed to get new glasses. Mm-hmm. Really what he told me was that because when I lived overseas, I didn't have regular eye exams, so I missed a lot of the things that could have told me I had this. Mm-hmm. With RP, that's the short name for it. It's like one of the symptoms is that you have trouble seeing at night, mm-hmm. because your vision begins to constrict and to narrow. And so you don't get all that light. And that's what was happening with me. It's probably been happening for like the last 10 years, but I just didn't pay attention. I was just living and exciting and going, and I didn't really notice all that much and pay attention to like when I'm stumbling or whatever, until the jungle.
Right.
So I had a decision to make. I only had 3 weeks until my job started in Indonesia. So for the first 2 weeks, I just sat in my room and went through this extreme depression or like freeze. I didn't leave anywhere. I think I called everyone I knew and I told them I was going to go blind. And it's like, what do you say to that? So then the last resort was God. I said, I don't know why it's always that way, but when I exhausted my other resources, I like, what do I do, God? And he answered me, really. There was a scripture when I was reading the Bible, and I just happened to open up in Genesis. And it said, Abram, go to a land that you do not know. I will guide you. And I will make you a father of many nations, and I will bless you. And I thought, oh my gosh, he can do that for Abram, who became Abraham. Then he can do that for me. He can take care of me. So that was the beginning of my choosing to live my life, despite my fears.
Yeah. God. So did you go to Indonesia then?
I did.
You did? Well done. And
yes.
while you're talking about your travels, you also spent time in the Middle East, I believe.
I did, yes.
Wow, that was teaching as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. How did you were teaching people who couldn't speak English how to speak English. So did you learn their languages quite quickly?
Well, most of the language I taught was in English in the classroom. So that was no problem. But I did learn different languages. I learned Japanese. I learned Portuguese. I learned, well, I knew Spanish already, basic Egyptian, or Arabic, I mean. And I learned Bahasa Indonesia, which is Indonesian.
Wow.
It's like modern Malay. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. We made contact through a mutual acquaintance called Chuck Bartok. He was the one who suggested we ask you to come on our show. So have you been working with Chuck for your books?
I have been, yeah. He's like an
Yes.
authorpreneur or something, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very supportive and kind of showing me how to market it better. And yeah, I really like him. He's just so kind.
Fabulous
Yeah.
gentleman. We both love them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful guy. Yeah, and we've
Yeah.
had him on the show earlier on, and we have several other authors that came under Chuck's wing that we've been talking to as well. So, and
Yeah.
one of our early ones was Nancy Lou Henderson, who
Mm-hmm.
I've been following her since she first started writing her first book and releasing it
Mm-hmm.
on her blog. So that I've been talking too much. That's enough for me. Back to you, Kathleen.
So Amy, let's delve into the books that you've written so far. So
Okay.
let's start with
Mm-hmm.
Mobility Matters.
Yeah.
How did you come to write it, and who is it for exactly?
Okay. It was a kind of I didn't purposely write it at first. I wanted to write about my travels, but my travels, they weren't coming up. It was like it kept being steered in another direction. When I had my orientation and mobility training, when I really came to face my vision loss, for about 20 years, I was kind of in denial. I just let whatever happen, and I didn't really face it. But when I came back home in 2006, my sight was really bad, and I had to do something about it because I was starting 2 new jobs, teaching jobs, local ones. I had this wonderful mobility instructor who, at first, I just like, oh my gosh, how do I get away from this guy? But he was completely 100% blind, and he kept calling me on the phone because I had a caseworker, and she said, you really need to learn more about orientation and mobility, getting around. And he said, how about if I just come to your house and show you some canes? And I said, I was really against this white cane thing. I thought it's going to limit me. It's going to take away my independence. And he did come to my house, and I didn't know in the beginning he was completely blind. I just was totally against anything with a white cane. He came to my house, and I'm like, oh, this man is blind. He's blind. He didn't tell me. Oh my gosh. So I went around taking up all the carpets and everything, and so he wouldn't fall. And I was guiding him. And it was, oh my gosh. But and then he wanted me to go in my neighborhood with the white cane. He wanted to try it out in front of my mom. All these people. It was like so public. And he said, why don't you just tell people you're blind? Like, not blind. And anyway, the whole thing is, little by little, he demonstrated how I could be empowered by using my white cane, mm-hmm. and how I could regain my independence. And it was like almost kind of like being in a foreign country. Like I became a little bit like a mouse, like a little bit more and more curious, because he would do things. He would like talk to my neighbors, and I'm like, how can he see them? And he would tell me that I have to be proactive and put out my hand, like to shake people's hands, because otherwise I can't see their hands. And I was like absorbing all these things, and then I wanted to please him like a teacher, you know, and we just seemed to fit together as a student and a teacher. By the end of that year, like I had kept it a secret even for my students. I couldn't tell them. I was just too embarrassed. I folded up my cane and put it in my filing cabinet. I was telling the whole high school, what do you call it, like the chapel, about blindness and how there are so many different phases of it, and how we have to be proactive. And I was showing them my Braille that I was learning, and it was just such a wonderful thing. And it all came about because of my completely blind mobility instructor. So that's the story of my book. I couldn't get away from it. And I felt that when I joined support groups online, they always struggled with a white cane, just like me. And they felt that it limited them, that people, thought they couldn't do things. And so I thought, I'm going to share how empowered I felt, and maybe I will motivate them and encourage them. So the audience for that are people who have had sight loss for quite a while and are at a crossroads and need to have a white cane and need kind of push and encouragement. And it's also Christians who have any kind of challenge and they need to see somebody overcoming. And it is just for people who want to kind of go through a feel good story, so we have this problem, and little by little I become empowered and curious and adventurous and excited. So that's what it's about.
Wow. And then you wrote your second book, and that was a much lighter one. That was Cane Confessions, and that's where you brought more lightness to the whole topic. So that was a little different. Tell us the background and how you did that one.
Yeah, because as in the beginning, when the first one I kept it a secret for so long that it was really a deep faith book. The second one, I had sort of become more open about my sight loss, and I thought about what I did overseas so that I can continue to stay overseas, and what kinds of things, how did I adapt? And so most of these stories that I had were humorous, and they, like, for example, when I went to my first writers conference, my gosh, all these things went wrong. That I went to, they had a meal, and I turned on the spigot to get iced tea, and I didn't see that you have to turn it off. And so the water was going, the iced tea was going everywhere, and they had a little tea brigade, and they sat me down, and I'm like, they gave me a piece of pecan pie, and it was just this whole thing about Niagara Falls, and it just, the humor struck me more and more, of how one time I got the wrong size coat. It was like totally dwarfing me. How could I even mistake it for my coat? And I climbed mountains, and I used people sometimes to light my way, like their flashlights. I followed people with bright colored clothing, and I don't know, just different stories of how whatever I did, I seemed to see the humor side of it. And whenever I had a problem, and I could see that these weird conversations went through my head, So I thought maybe that would encourage people,
Yeah.
Allow them to go follow their dreams.
Right.
Very good.
And then you wrote Seeking Solace, because you've dealt with a lot of loss in your life. And I know that on your website, you briefly mentioned the loss of your twins, perhaps if you're comfortable with sharing that, and tell us how your book would help somebody find joy after loss.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I lived in the United Arab Emirates, I had lost a set of twins, and I was in the hospital for 6 weeks, and so it was really major. I didn't even know I wanted to be a mom until I was pregnant, and then I had another miscarriage, and then a little while later, my marriage kind of fell apart, and then this is probably over a period of 10 years. And the last, in 2006, my father, who was the anchor of our family, so well loved, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I had lived in the Emirates for so long. I couldn't just come home. I needed to sell my things. I needed to finish up there, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to see him. So all of these things, I thought about them. My mother passed away in 2016, which is when I wrote the book, and I was just devastated because I was really close with my mom, and I wasn't there when she had a stroke. So I didn't do anything for like 2 months. And I was trying to think, how did God work in my life that helped me to get through these other losses? Because I know we build on things. When we trust that God does things in our lives, that we see what he's done, and we have more faith. So I looked at all of these losses, and I wrote like 15 devotionals for each one to see in that situation how God ministered to me. And it actually helped me with my mother's passing. It helped me see that God was really in the picture all the way through. And it helped me get past the depression and the guilt for not being there and all of these things. And I think how it can help other people, I tell them exactly what I went through, and I show how he ministered to me. It didn't, like, it's, you can, pain and fear and all of those things can exist with God. It's not like I feel I'm totally trusting or I'm totally not. It's like God partners with you. That's what I found out when I wrote that devotional book, that God partners with you and you can get through each day, you know? And so I think the people that read this will see how how God comforted me, some even miracles, you know, different things, and gave me comfort in really hard situations. And I think that they can extend it to their own lives and see how God has fit in the puzzle there and how he has supported them and been that anchor when they don't really even see it. Some people get angry at God, but sometimes God draws us to him and he partners with us. And I think that's how they can find joy.
Very good. Wow. And then you wrote a follow-up ebook to that book as well, didn't you? Or is that the devotionals?
Oh yes, there is a book. It's a beautiful little book called A Time to Dance, and this is about the twins. And it was maybe 10 or 15 years later, and you know, I never really did have any children because any children that lived. So I don't know. One Valentine's Day, my niece invited me to her house, and this story just shows how God continuously comforts us when we don't even know that he's there. And it's a beautiful story. So I think that will encourage other people who have gone through loss and at different stages of that loss, when they don't even know that they need encouragement.
Right. All right.
So Amy, loss of vision is so traumatic. What first step advice would you have for someone going through vision loss?
Yeah, it is very traumatic, usually. Sometimes it's gradual for me, and the trauma is like staggered. But I have met many people who have lost their vision all at once, and that is extremely traumatic. So what I say is, tell somebody. You know, share your feelings with somebody. It wasn't until I really told people that I started to do something about it. You know, a lot of people just let their fears, they're quiet about it. And they don't use a white cane. So I think start small. You know, there's a website, the American Printing House for the Blind, Vision Aware, and we have put together, it's a site that I volunteer for, right? And we have several peer advisors, and we put together first steps and what, you know, is like, what next? I'm blind, what next? And I think that they have so many wonderful suggestions there. And so that's an online source. It's really good. And the other one is just talking, communicating with your family. Starting to see my vision counselor, I call her that, she was really just a counselor at the Bureau of Blindness, but she started me to think about telling people. And I remember telling her how uncomfortable I was, and she's like, well, just tell them, just like my orientation and mobility instructor. So I think when you start to talk about it, when there's a dialogue, people begin to understand, and you're not alone, and you find resources, and you step by step move forward. But the first thing is to share it or to tell people your fears, because otherwise you just hold them inside, you know.
That's right. Amy, sorry, what was that resource you just mentioned? The American?
Vision Aware. It's the American Printing House for the Blind, APH.
APH. Okay.
.org. And the Vision Aware is one of their resources on that website.
No, that's great. We'll put some links on the video for those as well. So how can people get your books?
They can get it through Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah, it's in regular and large print. It's in Audible, audioinaudible.com.
Okay.
Amazon, iTunes. I have it in audio on my website, which is amybovaird.com. And I have it large print, regular print. I have bundles, like the first 3 books that people can get. My Seeking Solace, Mobility Matters, and Cane Confessions. So I have them on sale now. And I just put up the 2 very small ones, about hitting a home run, that's in audio on my website.
Okay.
It's a real short one, and it's about my diagnosis, but using the metaphor of baseball.
All right.
For baseball lovers. And then I have a time to dance in audio on my website as well.
Okay, no, that's great. I'll put all those links on so people can get hold of it as well.
Yeah.
That's quite amazing. You are quite an inspiration from what you've told us. That's
Thank you.
really interesting to hear. Of a very quick one, we got a little bit of time left. Of the 3 different parts of the world that you traveled, that was Central America, I gather, Middle East, including Egypt, and then the Far East, or further than the Far East, Indonesia area, all different in temperature, climate, people. Where was your favorite? What was the most that you meant the most to you?
Yeah, I really loved all of them, but I loved Indonesia. I guess probably because it's like 13,666 islands, and each island has like so many cultures within that island, and the Javanese and the Sundanese and it's just like a smorgasbord of culture and food and different lifestyle. It's just so fascinating. Yeah. Wonderful students.
And the winter's a bit warmer than Pennsylvania too.
Yes, much, much warmer. Yes, palm trees. So lovely. And just beautiful, beautiful people, kind, warm. Every place I've been, it has beautiful people. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you, Amy. That's back to Kathleen again.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today, Amy. You really, truly are an inspiration to so many, so thank you. And of course, thank you all so very much for joining us today. We so appreciate you and enjoy reading your comments. If anyone out there is interested in becoming a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Peter or myself. And as Peter mentioned earlier, we would love it if you were to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you get to have our next interview. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.